Dear Madam Maryam Rajavi, President-elect of National Council Resistance, Iran, it is a great honor indeed to address this important yearly event of the Iranian resistance, taking place at an extremely critical juncture for the international community and for the Iranian people. Now it is the time to get rid of the genocidal regime of the mullahs. The awareness about their crimes and the quest for freedom, justice, dignity, and a decent life are strongly felt by all who are committed to help those who are suffering under the cruelty and the corruption of the dictatorial regime. And this is especially true in the case of Iran. A large number of ex-officials and former ministers is attending this NCRI summit. They have been in charge of decision-making in their countries, and they are participating today because they are concerned about mullahs' human rights violations, secret nuclear program, Iran's meddling in other countries' affairs. By their attendance and their contribution to our discussion, these personalities intend to draw the attention of European and world leaders to the fact that now, with the election of the Iran president, of a mass murderer, the criminal nature of the regime is officially certified. The Iranian people have widely boycotted this sham election. 1,200 MEX supporters inside Iran have documented from polling stations in 400 with more than 3,500 clips the extensive boycott of the election. Less than 10% of the eligible voters did cast their ballots. They did it at the price of being arrested and tortured. But have the Western governments or even Western media taken note? Did they underline these facts? Not at all. The media and the many governments behaved as usual, taking the official news provided by the regime as good and reliable, instead of denouncing them as deep fakes. Many Western governments and parliaments expressed concern about the inhumane policies and actions of the Iranian regime. Still, many people, both in the United States and in Europe, have a clear responsibility in doing nothing to prevent these horrors. By making unnecessary and unfair concessions to the regime, Western governments show to the mullahs that they can enjoy impunity, that their crimes will remain unpunished. So the Iranian regime becomes tougher and tougher. The newly elected president of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Ebrahim Raisi, is a mass murderer. He was in charge of the 1988 massacre of innocent political prisoners, dissidents and protesters who were just seeking their freedom, freedom of thought, freedom of religion, political freedom. Most of them were killed by Raisi's orders, simply because they stood on their beliefs as MEC supporters. It is time to stand side by side with the great Iranian people to finally put an end to a bloody tyranny. The fast track Raisi obtained to gain the presidency was a clear sign of the Supreme Guy's desire to have a president willing and ready to carry out the most heinous and bloody repressions against any opposition or dissidents, a loud warning to Western leaders seeking to renegotiate the JCPOA. The 2015 nuclear deal has neither prevented internal repression and bloodshed nor military aggression throughout the region or sponsoring of terrorist activities. European and US governments should not forget the extreme suffering inflicted on the Iranian people whenever they agree to meet with representatives of a regime. Neither has the nuclear agreement curbed Tehran's aspiration to have nuclear weapons and a missile program in blatant violation of the UN Security Council Resolution 2331 and the nuclear program, in spite of the IAEA bans, raising uranium enrichment to 60%, very close to the breakout capacity for a nuclear bomb. About Iran's support of terrorism, We all know the real face of the regime and the threats we faced in Villepin 3 years ago with the terrorist plot engineered by the regime and almost executed by Assadollah Assadi, the regime's diplomat spy based in Vienna. For the first time in Europe, a national court ruled about and sanctioned a terrorist plot as clearly ordered by the regime leadership, inflicting the maximum penalty to Assadollah Assadi and his accomplices. It is high time for the European governments to establish an Euro-Atlantic front to effectively face the threats coming from Iran. A good opportunity is the resolution signed by the majority of the US Congress to condemn violations of human rights and state terrorism perpetrated by the Iranian government. Bipartisan appeal coming from US lawmakers is a call to collaborate with European allies in order to dismantle the dense network of operatives taking advantage of diplomatic coverage of his embassies in our continent. It is necessary to take a firm action against embassies and consular offices, as in the cases of Vienna and Tirana, which are responsible for providing Iranian regime cover and assistance to terrorist activities. These outposts of mullah's terror must be immediately closed and definitely removed. It is no more acceptable to deal with those like Ibrahim Raisi, who have on their hands the blood of tens of thousands of Iranian people. He is the perpetrator also of countless crimes against humanity and human rights. And for this reason, he is blacklisted by the US Treasury and has been blacklisted since November 2019. The names of all these victims must be engraved on the hearts and minds of every decent human being. They must be remembered as collective memory of all peoples and governments which rely upon a world where justice, freedom, respect of human dignity must be assured and implemented. Now the further question is, what should we do? Should we acknowledge the reality of this medieval regime because there is nothing we can do? No, this is absolutely not the case. The regime is weak. It is facing numerous crises and an explosive society. The strikes have spread already across Iran and are increasing every day. Now, just a few days after the sham election of Raisi, the petrochemical workers are protesting throughout the country, demanding higher pay to keep up with the skyrocketing inflation, which is now above 50%. In these circumstances, we should look to the organized and effective democratic alternative with its competent leadership. The pillar of this alternative and its strength and steadfastness has come about through the Iranians' struggle against the Shah's regime and inside the Shah's prison. Masoud Rajavi, who led the Mex movement against the previous dictatorship that ruled Iran, foresaw exactly what the whole world sees today about the mullah's behavior. He courageously and very bravely uttered 40 years ago, and I quote, "This regime is incorrigible. It cannot make reforms and it must go." Masoud Rajavi said about this regime from day one, he said that the viper does not give birth to a dove, and this has been fully demonstrated today. That is why the mullah's regime does everything it can to eliminate the MEC and the NCRI, to eliminate them as the only democratic alternative to Iran. It even opens the way for and helps the remnants of the Shah's monarchy to appear as an opposition group competing with the MEC and with the NCRI in order to deviate attentions from the true alternative, which is threatening the regime. If we seriously consider all the aspects of the Iranian situation, nothing points to the regime's survival in Iran. Iran has a powerful alternative which inspires and motivates the Iranian people. It motivates the Iranian people to resist and fight against the regime and to resist corruption and cruelty of the regime itself. Today, if the West wants to be effective, the best way of doing this is to acknowledge the democratic alternative that the corrupt clerical regime is trying to hide under a tremendous amount of demonization and through the buying of the media and journalists and many other ways. Thank you very much.